now it's my very, very distinguished honor and privilege to present our Katinka speakers. We have some very special guests here today to share some stories from our chapter, about our chapter founder, Katinka Dániel. And I would like to invite Sarah and Alexa Maland to speak.
Hi, Kati. So, hi, everyone. There's lots of people here that I recognize from my one summer with you all. That was back 5 or 6 years ago, or maybe even longer. So, Kelly, Marilyn, Martha, Kathy, Diane, Ari, all of you. It's great to see you guys. And if I missed anyone that is here that I know, hi.
Well, greetings and virtual hugs to each of you. And I won't name everyone that who knows me and that I recognize, but I just wanted to say I was so happy to see Martha to be with us because I have lost being in touch with Martha, and it's wonderful to see how wonderful you look, Martha. We put my mother's portrait up here, so I wanted to greet you in her name as well. She's not only with us through her portrait, but also with us in her spirit and through our memories. Thank you for including Sarah and me to be part of this celebration. Those of you who knew my mother might say, oh, Alexa looks a lot like her mother, Katinka. The older I get, the more I look like her, and also I have some of my mannerisms that seem to be like her.
We keep telling her the resemblance is uncanny.
This portrait was taken when she was 86 years old, and you can tell that she looks a lot better than I do now at my age of 75. She had always this youthful look, but not only the youthful look, but she had a youthful interest, just like a child, always wanting to discover things, to explore things, to learn new things. And she was always ready for adventure. In our family, rarely a day goes by that we don't mention her name or remember her. And we do this always by imitating her accent. This is not a sign of disrespect, but rather this is a way that brings her presence alive to us. She had a distinctive Hungarian accent, and Sarah is very good at imitating that. When we first arrived in the United States in 1960, of course, that's when all of our accents were the worst. But those were the years when she started her teaching at San Roque Elementary. And I can just imagine when the first grade students might have gone home and said to the parents, oh, today Mrs. Dániel taught us about rhythm. That's the way how she pronounced the word rhythm. Sarah
now,
said,
eventually it became rhythm, which makes more sense, but yeah.
And my accent is becoming worse as I get older. And Sarah, who is the English major, tells me that that is normal for people who are not original English speakers.
I also studied, acquisition of a second language, so I get it.
So my mother also had in her speech certain habits or a certain way of expressing herself. Often she would start her sentences by saying "hat." "Hat" in Hungarian kind of means well, something like that.
Filler word.
Yeah. And so then she would say something and something following that with sheer astonishment. So an example of that would be, Sarah would tell you.
So like in this whole pandemic thing and people wondering, what are we going to do now? She would say, how does it come? You don't do that. I write the way, tell what you do. I write the way, tell.
Yes, and then she also, when she spoke, a lot of times, instead of putting a verb in a past tense, she would use the word did. So for instance, instead of saying, I rode in the dog sled, she would say, I did ride the dog sled in Alaska, which she actually did do. Anyway, so those are the when we speak about her at home, we use this way of her speaking. It brings her alive to us. I was thinking about during this pandemic, how would she encourage us during this time of great challenges? And I think that it goes with her, what she might say to us, but also with her example. She would encourage us to face our difficulties with courage, to be grateful for what we have rather than to complain about it. She would tell us to help one another and to bring joy to one another, to find joy in simple things. Because this is what she did all throughout her life instinctively. She did not read the self-help books. She just had the wisdom, much of which came from her upbringing and through her own trials in her life. So what would she say to us right now? She would tell us, not in an admonishing way, but in an encouraging way, in an expression that we think would be typical of her.
And this was something that we heard a lot growing up, at least I did. She would say, "Hat, don't be that helpless." And then in this kind of situation, she'd probably follow that up with, "We had a lot harder things to endure during communism."
So, but if you knew her, then if you understood her, you understood that when she said, "Don't be that helpless," it wasn't a criticism, but rather it was to encourage us to take action.
Even if sometimes it felt like a criticism.
But you guys have done a fabulous job of doing this online program and having the online program for the Summer Institute. And so I am thinking that if my mother would be here, this is what she would say.
This Zoom is fabulous. Kati, you did a fabulous job. All of you, fabulous.
And yes, Dr. Kathy Hickey, she always called her Kati by the Hungarian version of Kathy. So how do we find our joy in this difficult time? So what were the things that brought her joy? Well, it was teaching for sure. Whether it was teaching piano or solfege or elementary students or adult teachers, every moment was a teaching moment. And Sarah, of course, as a grandchild, was the beneficiary of all of this. She got exposed to the Kodai methods used in piano teaching early on, and she'll tell you about it.
So as I was saying this in our breakout as well, but every summer she would come to visit us for like a month. And then when that happened, piano lessons stopped with the regular teacher and Grandma Katinka took over. And we would do a lot of just, playing like duets, four-handed pieces. And one of the pieces that has really stuck with me over time was a piece by Diabelli, which was a four-hand, that she taught me pretty much by singing through the solfege at first. And so even today, even when I don't really play anymore, I can still kind of pick that one out because I know mi fa so 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 mi do, etc.
Anyway, so my mother shared her knowledge unselfishly with everyone, not just her own family, but as you know, with all of you teachers. She loved people. It gave her joy to visit with people, to invite them to her house for musical afternoons or performances. She admired people's talent, and it was without jealousy. Her house was always welcoming visitors from refugees to teachers, colleagues, friends. Her phone never stopped ringing. When we went to a visit to Santa Barbara, most of the time she had other visitors as well. So we never really had her all to ourselves. Sarah once wrote an essay about our visit there, and she called her house on Crestline Drive the Hotel Katinka. but it was a hotel that charged no fees. The people whom she loved most outside of her own family and closest friends were her Kodai family, and that's all of you. She hosted the cask annual meeting at her house and used to cook the chicken paprika. But I have to tell you that Sarah thinks Dr. Hickey's chicken paprika is the best.
It's really good.
Anyway, and she loved to participate in all of the workshops and programs. I, living in Salt Lake City, missed out on all of this, except in the last year of her life in 2010. I was in Santa Barbara with her for the last few months of her life, and I was able to participate in the cask annual meeting. And then later in October of 2010, I went with her to Fresno, where there was a Kodai organization workshop there. And this is where I experienced what it was for her to be in her Kodai family. It was sheer joy, sheer enthusiasm, and I could see the great love that she had for her Kodai family, and in turn, how much she was loved. She was energized with participating in the singing and watching the demonstrations, and she loved the Hawaiian party at the end. I think that a number of you who were participating today will remember that day. If she would be alive now, she would be listening with great enthusiasm to what you have learned this past week. She would want to get to know you, each one individually. When she was no longer teaching, she always looked forward to attending the closing session of this summer workshop. And she would fly home from our visiting here in Salt Lake City, leaving us high and dry just to be there in California with you. I wanted to mention before I close that my mother is being remembered, and now 10 years after her death, still in many different ways. Dr. Kathy Hickey participated in a filming of Kodai method all over the world. And this film was produced in Hungary, I believe, for Kodai's, the anniversary of Kodai's death, which was 50 years ago in 2016 or 17. So Dr. Hickey can tell you more about that. But that was another time where Dr. Hickey mentioned my mother in connection with the Kodai method here in California, or with you in California. There have also been publications, and this publication called Hungarian Review. It was there is a program or a story entitled Zoltán Kodai's Journey of Triumph in Santa Barbara, California. And it's written by Dr. Melinda Berlas, and she is an archivist at the Institute of Musicology in Research Center for the Humanities, the Hungarian Academy of Sciences. And she has, not only in the Hungarian Review, but there's another English version of this article. Actually, it's not the same article. It is, but it's about the Kodai visit to Santa Barbara. And these articles are in memory of Erno Dániel, who's my father, and his wife, Katinka Dániel. So, and there's a Hungarian version in this beautiful quarterly journal of the similar article. The other thing and my mother was given posthumous award and whatnot, but just recently, in 2019, I happened upon an article online about my father, and it's written by a piano teacher whose name is Rick Seifert, who teaches in Oregon, and he attended the Interlochen music camp just the year before my father passed away in 1976 is when the student attended. And he wrote some lovely comments about my parents, and I thought that I couldn't tell it in a better way. So here's what she said. He said he was taking lessons in the morning, and in the afternoon they would go out to the lake. He says, we found the lake and later met there with Katinka every afternoon to swim. Those afternoons were filled with almost more than ever one could cover in a piano lesson. Stories of Hungary, famous musicians, deep inner devotion to God, and a keen love for the United States. Katinka was an extrovert extraordinaire, and wearing her brightly flowered bathing cap, would talk about so many things, such as Bela Bartok, Zoltán Kodály, and so on. Then he goes on to say, one afternoon on our walk to lunch there was a magnificent sky prior to a thunderstorm. And I can still hear Katinka calling out to us in her thick Hungarian accent, look, Ernő, see that cloud, see that cloud. It was as if heaven itself was opening up to greet us, the sun streaming in rays down upon us. They were beautiful and remarkable people.
Uh-huh.
So to close, I want to wish you, for all of you during these challenging times, that you find your joy, that you lift up your eyes to see the beautiful clouds from where Katinka is smiling at you, wishing you the best, because after all, you are her children, her family. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alexa, Sarah, thank you so much. That was so touching and so special to hear all of those heartfelt memories. And oh, if Katinka could be here today to see us all celebrating, she would be so thrilled. Kathy, do you have anything you'd like to add? Okay. Thank you, you guys. That was so special, and I really appreciate you sharing that with us. Thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.